So a little while back, I bought what I said was the perfect guitar. Let's find out if it's true. Now, to me, the perfect guitar is a few different things. For one, it has to stay in tune. Has to be easy to play when you want it to be. That's so crucial. What I mean by when you want it to be, sometimes you don't want a guitar to be easy to play, as odd as that might sound. It has to be very versatile, and I need it to be inspiring above all else. You know, sometimes an out-of-tune guitar can be inspiring, but it's got to have those characteristics. And I really felt like the PRS that I got had all those things and a little bit more. Before we get too far into this, I did want to say that this is not a sponsored video in any way. It's not affiliated with PRS. We purchased it from Sweetwater. It's not affiliated with them either. This is just a video I wanted to make myself, kind of like just talking about why I thought this guitar was perfect and just kind of show you some examples of how it holds up that end of the deal for me. Alright, so here's what we're doing. Finger guns are loaded, so be careful. Well, come on, watch out. Now, we're going to do some blind tone testing. I keep wanting to say taste testing because I'm clearly hungry. I'm ready for lunch. So here's what we're doing. We are going to have I'm going to compare the PRS to the big three. I'm talking about Strat, Tele, and of course the Les Paul. Now, I'm going to have, like I said, it's a blind tone test, so I'm going to have some B-roll playing of 2 audio clips, and I want you to be able to tell me which one's the Strat, which one's the PRS. Then we're going to go to the next section, which one's the Tele, which one's the PRS, and so on, of course, with the Les Paul. And I will reveal the answer after each section and give you kind of my insight to them. So it's not so much which one sounds better, but can you tell them apart enough to where you're like, oh, that's clearly the Strat, that's clearly the PRS. Strat versus PRS. Now, which one was audio 1? Which one was audio 2? Well, audio 1 was in fact the Strat, and audio 2 was the PRS. Now, like I said, when I heard these back to back, I was like, you know, there's like a little bit of a difference, but talk about getting close. Now, I think the PRS's strongest assets, and this really happened and turned me on to them so much, was with my CE, was the fact that the coil splitting ability was like the best I'd heard. You know, I still think that whatever they're doing that's different, I don't know what makes it different than other ones, but the coil splitting does such a good job of sounding like a single coil. So I thought that it got really, really close. There's a little bit of that extra little like spank and sparkle that the Strat has, that I don't know if maybe that's coming from a slightly longer scale length. Both of them have the same gauge strings on it, all that kind of stuff. So does it out-Strat a Strat? No. Does it sound like a Strat? Yes. Yes, I think it does. Alright, so Tele versus, I don't know why I did that, versus PRS. Now, this one is, I feel like a Tele, it's kind of funny because a Tele is really hard to sound like, yet a Tele can sound like so much stuff. So, I don't know, funny, science. But, you know, with this one, I think that the Tele clearly sounded like a Tele. And part of that is, I think, the scale length coming into effect, the metal plate, and just there's this uncontrollable like snap that a Tele has, especially on those lower, like when I was picking close to the bridge. Now the PRS, not that it didn't sound like the Tele, it got in that realm, that maybe not as much as it did with the Strat, but I did think when I was, you know, really picking back near the bridge and, you know, kind of like trying to up pick more to give it a little bit more accentuation on those notes, it sure does get you that like kind of heart and vibe of it, especially when you're playing like a little bit of a country, you know, boogie, my crappy version of a country boogie. But you know, I think it's right there. If I didn't have a Tele, I feel like this one would get the job done. Full-on humbuggy mode engaged, the final battle. Now, which one was the Les Paul? Which one was the PRS? Well, audio number 1 was PRS, and audio number 2 was Les Paul. Now, there are a couple of differences here. I don't have a traditional Les Paul with that mahogany neck. But all my Les Pauls have maple necks other than my P90 with gold top, so it really wouldn't work to compare those. But I still think that in a track, I don't know if I'd be able to tell these apart. For me, I think I have a little bit of the unfair advantage of I've just heard my KM so much that I recognize this pop that it has to it, to the notes. It has a little bit of a brighter sound, so I'm real familiar with just the way that one particular guitar sounds. Now, the DGT is essentially, it's obviously David Grissom's signature model, but it's based off of a McCarty, which is kind of like PRS's version of a double cut Les Paul. You've got the mahogany, the maple cap, double humbuggers, and all those different like categories are all coming into play with this one. So sound, very, very close, very even. Playability, comfort, I got to go with PRS. Mine's very balanced. It's, it kind of just hugs your body, more like a Strat. But part of that Les Paul sound is that sleazy kind of rock and rollness that just comes along with the Les Paul. So you got to, I think it's going to come down to vibe more than sound between those two. Here's the whole point of the whole thing. So, because you're probably asking, like, why would you want a guitar that just sounds like these other ones? Just use the other guitars. Well, for one, that's not always an option. I've mentioned this in other videos. When I'm recording a lot of times, I like to record with one guitar and I get my scratch track down. And I love using the PRS. The CE is really what made me want the DGT, because I wanted a PRS with a slightly different voice. So instead of switching guitars all the time, a lot of time I'm trying to move quick, really just trying to like hone in on the inspiration of melodies and different stuff like that. Well, the PRS, I'm like, oh, this is a really like Stratty part. Well, I just kind of make the PRS sound like a Strat. Or it needs this big Les Paul sound. Well, I just kind of make it sound like this. Maybe it has that Tele vibe. So instead of switching guitars, I'm just using the guitar to switch sounds. And it's much quicker, it's much easier, the moment doesn't pass you by as much. That's why I like this guitar. Like I said, does it out Strat a Strat? No. Does it out Tele a Tele? No. And because I didn't get it to do that stuff. And that is going to be it. So there you have it. Let me know, did you think that the PRS held up pretty well? Because again, it's not so much about like, can it out Strat a Strat? Can it out Tele a Tele? No, I just wanted to get into those realms. The more I've played PRS and had them, I realized they do have their own voice. I was originally kind of the person who was like, I don't know, the PRS just doesn't have a sound to me. And as I've played them longer, I've kind of got more in tune, and I'm like, oh, you know what? No, they do have a sound. I think it has a lot to do with their pickup voicing and all that kind of stuff. But for me, I just like to use it to record with, to overdub, all those things. They're just really versatile and they stay in tune. All those things are great. I think that's gonna be it. If you guys would, please subscribe, turn the bell notification on, hit the like button, all those things. It really does help out a whole bunch. We've been working really hard on these videos. So other than that, I'll see you all later. Peace out, homies.